G'day guys, Dean from Blog for the Blood God here, and we've just gotten back from VTC, the Victorian Team Championships. It was held last weekend. It was a 5-man teams event, and my team placed second overall, which is really fantastic. I'm really proud of those results. Basically what I want to do in today's video is break down the list, break down the format of the event, break down my results, break down each game in sort of a summary style so that you get a bit of an idea of what the event's like, what Melbourne events are like with the Victorian teams and that sort of stuff, and also get a bit of an idea of the approach that I took to the event, the list that I ran, and how it went in the various matchups. So with that being said, I'm going to jump straight into the video. But before I do, I just wanted to also mention the YouTube Super Thanks feature. So if you want to show this channel some one-off support, you can't be asked going through the whole process of setting up a Patreon account and all that, but you still want to show your support, Super Thanks is a really easy way to do it. It's a couple of clicks, you can chuck us $1 here and there. Just think of it like tipping. Essentially, you're tipping for the content. So I make all of this content, I refuse to put any of it behind a paywall. I want to give it to you guys for free. That being said, it's a lot of work goes into these videos. There's a lot of equipment required, a lot of software, a lot of, things like that. There's ongoing costs with those software. So in order to keep this up, I need the support from the community. And that also motivates me to keep going. So it's very much appreciated, whether it be support through Patreon or whether it be through the Super Thanks. Either way, I very much appreciate the support. And with that being said, let's get straight into the video.
Blog for the Blood God.
Alright, g'day guys. So we've just got back from VTC, which is the Victorian Team Championships, and I thought I'd just hit you guys with a quick summary of the event and my list and the matchups. So let's just jump straight into it. So the event itself was a 5-round, 5-player teams event. So for those who aren't familiar with the team event format, basically you get 5 players on this team, 5 players on that team, and then you go through a pairings process to determine who plays who, and then the results from those games are scored between 0 and 20 based on a victory point differential. So the more you beat your opponent by, the more you get out of that 0 to 20. So it might be, if you get a very strong win, you might get 15 points and your opponent might get 5. If it's a really close game, you might get 11 points and they might get 9, but either way, the 20 points are split between the 2 players. And then the total of those points across all 5 players added together determines the victor, which team wins, right? So that's the team's pairings process, the team's, format. I ran a team with some very heavy-hitting players. We actually had 3 of the Australian WTC gold medalists on my team. So it was a very stacked team. However, I actually think it's possible that was our downfall because we didn't do anywhere near as much prep as we should have. Like, we did exactly none. Whereas there were some other teams that had multiple WTC winners on them as well, and they actually did do the prep because they knew that in order to beat us, they were going to have to do some serious prep. So, yeah, so I think we might have, taken that for granted, perhaps. My team ended up coming second out of I think there was about 20 teams at the event. So still a solid result. It's something I'm very happy with personally. But yeah, so I'll run you through my list now. So I ran Night Lords. I've made it sort of my mission to, at every event, I want to try a different Legion. So I've done Alpha Legion, I've done Creations of Bile, I've done Black Legion, and now I'm doing Night Lords, and then next up I'll probably do like Word Bearers or Corsairs or something like that. Just going through them all, just trying to see which ones work and what works within each Legion, even though, like, for example, I didn't ever think that the Alpha Legion were going to win the tournament, but I wanted to see, well, how well can you go if you run an optimized Alpha Legion list? What matchups does it actually really struggle into, etc. So I did a similar thing with this one with Night Lords. My list had Abaddon the Despoiler. It's actually the same list that's in a video battle report that I believe is scheduled to come out tomorrow, depending on when I post this, but very soon. Yeah, so I ran Abaddon the Despoiler in a Supreme Command, and then it was a Night Lords Battalion. I had a Daemon Prince, Mark of Slaanesh, and the fight's last warlord trait, Dirty Fighter. And then I had a Master of Possessions, Liber, Hereticus, Mark of Slaanesh, Pact of Flesh, Mutated, Invigoration. Then in troops, it was just 3 units of cultists. And then in elites, I had 2 units of Chosen, a unit of 9 with the Mark of Slaanesh, and a unit of 10 with the Mark of Khorne, icons in both. And then I had a unit of 10 Terminators with the Black Rune of Damnation, Mark of Slaanesh. So that was sort of my anvil and my fists. And then I had 2 single Obliterators, so 2 units of 1. I had a unit of 1 Chaos Spawn and a unit of 5 Raptors. And the idea basically was that the Terminators would deep strike in turn 1 because of Night Lords. They would then use the Master of Possessions to string out for a 5-inch charge by killing a guy and then resurrecting him closer. And then they would charge in and tie up everything in the backfield, like I showed in the Night Lords Terminator Masterclass. So they would do that turn 1, and then they would basically just keep preventing my opponent from being able to fall back and being really, really hard to kill. So they would just gum up my opponent's backfield and block everything in. And then meanwhile, my Chosen units are moving up. They're using the Rhino to slingshot themselves forward, and they're getting into those crucial positions in the midfield, ready for a turn 2 charge or potentially a turn 3 charge, depending on the situation. And then on top of that, you've got the cultists holding out the backfield, raising banners, doing all that good shit. And then you've got the Obliterators and the Raptors and the Spawn. They're there to help me get behind enemy lines. So the Obliterator is really good because you can just drop them in a little pocket. They're really hard to screen out. And having 2 separate units means that in one turn I can just drop those 2 down and boom, there's 4 points for behind enemy lines. And then there's these 2 annoying as fuck Obliterators in their backfield that they need to try to deal with. And they also contribute not insignificant shooting. So that's more or less the list, and it performed pretty much exactly how I expected it to. One of the things I guess I didn't account for is that it's a very combat-heavy meta at the moment, and this list is designed to really punish shooting armies, but there wasn't a massive amount of shooting. So that made it a little bit more challenging than I had anticipated, but it still performed quite well. So I'll just run through my matchups. I won't go into too much detail because I don't have the lists in front of me, so I'll be sort of going off memory. But the first matchup was Blood Angels. He had, 3 Sangard units, a couple of Death Company units, all the characters, and a bunch of Eliminators. And that one I got an 18-point win, so I got 18 points, he got 2, so it was a very convincing win. Basically what happened in there is he split his army in half, so one half went down one flank and the other half went down the other. So I just focused all in on one side, blew up all of the stuff he had on that side, and then basically he took massive casualties, but I took very limited casualties, which meant that, on the scoreboard I was just way ahead, essentially, because he took, for example, the Blood Angel secondary where one of his characters has to kill one of mine, and he picked my Daemon Prince, so I just didn't engage with the Daemon Prince, and anything that did, I just went, cool, I make it fight last, and then I fight and I kill it. So yeah, that was a pretty big blowout. That was our first round. Then the second round, I went into Chaos Knights, Imperial Knights, sorry. And this one I got a 0 point. I got a crushing loss, which was just very disappointing. And basically, yeah, turn 1, I got first turn, so I dropped in on one of his knights, one of the armigers, the little guys with the Terminators, and I did 2 wounds to it with a whole fucking Terminator unit, throwing everything they had. I put Veterans of the Long War on them, I put another CP to get hitting on 2s. Like, I went hard, and I only did 2 fucking wounds to that. And then he basically obliterated the Terminators, and I was like, wow, if the Terminators can't get it done, nothing can, So I actually just can't hurt this army. And then Abaddon charged one turn 2, another Armiger, and he failed to kill it as well. So the 4-up invulnerable save and the trans hitman on those knights was just a huge fucking problem for me. I just couldn't deal with them. So yeah, that was disappointing. That was a crushing loss. And that was the round that my team lost, and we lost that to the team that won the event overall. So the team that beat us then went on to win the event. But yeah, so that's something that I'm now in the process of workshopping. Is like, well, what the fuck do I do against knights? I'm thinking I need to roll something like Death Hex into the list to mitigate their ability to have that 4-up invulnerable save. And I also think I need some form of like Chapter Master style reroll hits so that I can, you know, their trans hitman is not as relevant. So I need to do something, because the fact that I basically killed nothing, like I ended up killing 2, but that's nowhere near enough. Like, you need to kill fuckloads more than 2, and you need to do it fast, because they put out so much shooting damage that if you don't kill them, you're fucked. So, a combination of that, and then a combination of also perhaps not picking Bring It Down. It sounds obvious, you're into knights, you pick Bring It Down, but if you can't kill them, and you can't kill them efficiently, it's not a good pick. So, like, if I had have gone, you know what, I'm going to pick Warp Ritual instead, and I'm just going to run into the middle of the table with Terminators chosen, everything, bubble wrapping around this Daemon Prince so you can never get to him, and then I'm just going to Warp Ritual, Warp Ritual, Warp Ritual, that would have been 12 points. Instead of the, like, I think I got 4 for Bring It Down. So that's that game, and then the third game was into Drakari. So Dark Elder, he had like a bunch of Incubine Boats, a bunch of Grotesques, a bunch of Racks, like a real mixed sort of fast MSU combat-based Drakari list. And that one, he basically, this was the inverse, where the Terminators did massive amounts of work. So the Terminators killed like 3 or 4 units and held multiple objectives for the entire game. And just everything that he threw at the Terminators, he'd kill, like, he'd have to throw like 3 or 4 units if he wanted to do damage. One of them would fight and kill a couple of Terminators, and then because I was Mark of Slaanesh, I would then fight immediately after his first charger, and I would just kill like everything that hadn't fought yet. So it was really hard for him to deal with that Terminator unit. And then even the Chosen and things like that, he'd charge in, he'd kill more Chosen. He'd kill like, you know, 4 or 5, but the 5 that were left were enough to just shred his units. So he was sort of just bouncing off of me the whole time. And the Obliterators got really effective shooting profiles because they get the 9 plus D6 shots that are strength 5, AP 1. That's really efficient into the Dark Elder. Even my bolters were just shredding units of Incubi and stuff. Like, it was just really good. So, really strong matchup there, and yeah, played it well and got I think I got like a 17-3. So, a big win there. And then we go into day 2. First opponent of day 2 was running Necrons. And this one was interesting. So, he had the standard sort of net list, Necron list at the moment, where it's like a bunch of Scarabs, a bunch of Destroyers, a bunch of Wraiths, and the Silent King. But I think I lost maybe 1 or 2 units tops. I think I lost 1 unit. Because basically I went first, he pre-game moved up into the center of the table, and the Terminators just dropped down, shot a bunch of Scarabs, and then charged a unit of Scarabs, blew them up, and then took the center objective. And then he would throw like 1 unit of Destroyers at a time into me, and he'd kill like 2 Terminators, and then I'd kill the Destroyers in return. And then in my turn, I'd resurrect one of those 2 Terminators, and then string out and charge something else, kill that, and then in his turn, he'd throw 1 more unit of Destroyers into me, kill 2 Terminators, and then I'd kill them back. So the Terminators once again did really heavy work in this matchup. Abaddon also was a beast. He killed the Silent King. He killed a unit of Canoptech Wraiths, or whatever the fuck they're called. Yeah, he killed it. He killed a bunch of shit. The Daemon Prince was really good because he was just running around making things fight last, so that like I could engage in multiple combats at once with impunity. Like, that was really good. So yeah, that was a really strong game. That was I believe that was a 18-2 point win, so another big win. And yeah, basically he just didn't have the damage output to deal with me, was the reason for that game being such a big blowout. He had the objective secured and he had the better secondaries, but I was able to actually damage him. He wasn't able to damage me, so it meant by turn 3 he was pretty much tabled. And then the final game, I went into another CSM player, a good mate of mine, and I got a 57 to his 54, which in the team format, that's technically a draw, because you have to beat them by more than 5 points to get out of that 10-10 draw. So it was we call that a winning draw. And yeah, so that was a really, really tight game. And yeah, basically we had Terminator on Terminator combat for pretty much the entire game. Because I turn 1 did the deep strike in, charged, killed a couple of possessed from a couple of different units, tagged cultists and possessed, and then I used the you can't shoot fallback, so therefore all of his decimators and all of his terminators and all of his fucking everything. He had a venom crawler, he had a Lord Discordant. Really cool list. I really liked it. I might actually even do a review on it, because I was quite impressed with it, and I was quite impressed with the way that he piloted it. So yeah, it was a really cool Iron Warriors list. But yeah, basically I just dropped down. I knew I was never going to get through all those Terminators, but I also knew that if I could keep him in combat with me, it was going to be quite hard for him to get through my Terminators. Because like Possessed are not good at killing Terminators, because they're only AP 2. So I'm just getting 3-up saves with a 5-up Feel No Pain. Like it's really hard for him to kill. And Terminators aren't very good into him either, because they're only 1 damage, and you know, and I'm getting 5-up Feel No Pains against them, and they just take so much damage, so many rounds for his Terminators to kill my Terminators. He was doing some pretty cool shit with like Warp Marked on me to make him +1 to wound, which was cool. Yeah, but unfortunately he picked Assassinate as one of his secondaries, which he scored quite low on, because I basically only gave him the Daemon Prince. I kept Abaddon back till later in the game, because I knew that it's going to take him multiple turns to kill Abaddon. So if I keep Abaddon safe for the first couple of turns and then sling him out later, he'll be able to just run around and do whatever he wants to do and not have to worry about getting killed. And the Master of Possessions is not relevant in the fight. He can do most of his powers from a range. So I was like, yep, cool, I'm just going to sit him back behind some cultists behind a wall. So you can't charge him and you can't shoot him, so he's safe. And then yeah, so that was an interesting game. I think if the game unfortunately had to end early. We only finished I think we got to turn 4. And if the game had have gone on, an argument could have been made that he would have won, because he could have, you know, pushed deeper in and blah blah blah. We did use a chess clock, but we fucked it up, and halfway through, so I went first, so he did my turn. Then we ticked it onto him and did his turn. But then halfway through my turn 2, we realized that we forgot to click it back over onto me. And as a result, we basically just said, well, fuck the clock. We've fucked it up. It's impossible to figure out who has what time now, so we just ignored the clock. But I think we probably used more or less the same amount of time. I think just because we weren't on the clock, we were less conscious of the time. So when the judge came over and said you got 10 minutes left in the round, and we hadn't finished it, you know, we just were like, okay, I guess we just finished this turn, and then put in those scores, you know. Which is disappointing, but yeah. I think that game was an interesting one, because I knew I wasn't going to get much in terms of kills, so I just sort of played super cagey and just kept everything hidden out of line of sight, except for the Terminators, and the Terminators I kept locked in combat, so I just denied his shooting all game, which was very effective, because it meant that all the damage he had to do was in combat, and I really wanted to get him in combat, because I've got, you know, the strong combat units. So yeah, no, that was a sick game. Boyd's a sick lad. He's a good mate of mine, so yeah, we had fun. And that sort of sums up the event, really. So that ended up with my team coming second, so we got a nice little medal and some cash, which is cool. And yeah, so I had a lot of fun, and VTC is one of my favorites. So I came second in the previous year as well. And I think we came third the year before that. So we've podiumed at VTC, the Victorian Team Championships, every year that it's ran. So it's kind of one of our favorite events to go to. So if you're in Melbourne and you're in the sort of, or even if we had a lot of Queenslanders fly down for it, we had some people from New Zealand fly in for it, we had some people from like all over, we had New South Wales team, lots and lots of, so it's actually quite a big event on the Australian calendar. So if you're an Aussie and you're listening to this, like, check out Victorian Team Championships on the internets. Just Google it, or fucking it's on Facebook, I think, is where they do most of their marketing. Or just reach out to me and I'll send you some links. But yeah, definitely look into it. It's a sick thing. I think he's going to be doing teams of 4 next time. So he does the first few, he did teams of 4, then he did teams of 5. But I think teams of 5 were a bit more challenging for him to manage because he needed to find, 5 people that were prepared to be a Gumby team or a Merc team in case we had dropouts, and it just becomes a lot more difficult to manage. So but yeah, so I don't know what he's going to do for next year. It'll be either teams of 4 or teams of 5, but yeah, definitely check it out. It's a sick event. Team events are so much fucking fun. I actually did a video on team events, which I'll link in the description, that specifically outlined why they are so much fucking better than singles events, because team events bring a lot of things to the table that singles events just don't, and they're just so much better in the way that you can run a list that might be particularly vulnerable to one matchup and then just dodge that matchup. And things like when you lose, you don't feel as bad because you might have taken a hard matchup so that your teammates could get good matchups, and therefore you losing is actually part of the plan that results in your team winning. So losing a game doesn't hurt anywhere near as much as when you lose a game in singles and you're like, well, the only thing that mattered in this game is me winning. Whereas in a team event, it's like, well, no, there's you winning, but then there's also your team winning. And then there's also things like, because it's your team's overall score versus their team's overall score, there's actually a difference between a big loss and a small loss. So even in those losing games, you want to push to try to get as many points as you can, because it actually matters how much you lose by. Whereas in singles, it's just binary. It's like win or lose. If you lose, you fucking lost. Like, So I really like the team format. I think it's amazing, and I did like a half-hour video where I really deep dive and broke down all of these different reasons why team events are so fucking good for the game and so good for the community. So yeah, if you've got time, go. I'll chuck a link, but yeah, give that a look, check that out. And if you like team events, hit up the Victorian Team Championships, because yeah, it's a fucking sick event. Had a ton of fun. Got a 2nd place, which is a strong result. And yeah, I look forward to potentially seeing some of you guys at the next one. Yeah, so thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll talk to you next time. And yeah, a quick shout out to my Patreons. The Patreon's actually grown quite a lot in the last month. So huge thank you to all of those who have signed up to show your support. We've actually got a pretty robust little community going over on our Patreon exclusive Discord server, where we talk lists and we really break down the details. I jump in there and give my thoughts and give my advice and things like that. So if you want to check that out, that's a really good place to do it. And then yeah, so I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers. Alrighty guys, I hope you enjoyed that summary of my VTC tournament results. Let's get a conversation going down below. What do you think about my list? Do you think that there's something that you could verse? Do you feel you'd be confident into it? Do you think it'd crush you? What about my opponent's list? What did you think of those? Did you think that I got an easy run, or do you think it was quite challenging and I got some significant results? Let me know what you think. I want to have a conversation down below, and let me know if you are into team events, what your thoughts are on the format and that sort of thing. I'm personally a huge advocate for team events. I think they solve a lot of the problems with Warhammer 40k right now. So team events are an absolute godsend as far as I'm concerned. So if you have thoughts on that and you want to have a conversation, that's what the comment section's for. You can also head over to our Patreon. You can sign up for, I think the lowest tier is $4 a month now. And basically in that Patreon, you get access to a Discord server, and we have like good conversations in there. We share lists, we share ideas, we bounce things off of each other. You can request videos in there, those sorts of things. So There's a lot of stuff happening in that Discord server, which is really fantastic. And we've got building a steadily growing community. So if you want to check that out, please do. Links are in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.
The Warhammer community suffers from some of the most prohibitively expensive essentials in the world, especially Australian content creators. Every single day, Dean wants to create content, but he can't. Suffering from old, worn-out brushes, expensive model kits, and costly software and equipment he can't endure much longer. Just look at this dirty paint water. Would you drink this? Would you let your child? Even a small monthly donation can help provide Dean with clean paint water, basic tools for survival, and access to life-saving information and education. So please, follow the links in the description below and find out how you can sponsor a mad cunt like Dean today and end the suffering. Suffering that is cruel, unsustainable, and your fault.
Do your objective markers ever get lost behind terrain or other models and become difficult to see? Do they ever get bumped and accidentally moved during a game? And do they ever spark arguments about distances? Well, not anymore. Introducing the blog for the blood god, not even remotely patented neoprene objective markers. Made from the same material as astronaut suits, or maybe military equipment, or probably neither of those things, this 2mm thick neoprene synthetic rubber is tear resistant, water resistant, and is designed to last. But that's not all. The blog for the blood god, not even remotely patented neoprene objective markers come in a variety of different designs and styles to suit any faction represented in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. These objective markers are a perfect gift for yourself or a friend, and are a perfect way to flex and show your opponent that not only are you a smarter, cooler, and better 40k player than them, but you also have more disposable income than they do. For the low price of $25, you'll get not one, not two, but 6 neoprene objective markers, perfectly designed for 9th edition Warhammer 40k. But wait, there's more. For a limited time only, people who sign up on Patreon to support Blog for the Blood God as a Skull Champion tier $5 per month member will gain access to a custom design service where I will design a unique logo to support their gaming club, like the one I did to the left here for the Potato Farmers local gaming club here in Melbourne. Follow the links in the description of this video to pick up your set today.